Welcome, everybody, to the Promochat Deep Dive. I'm here with Brian Jolin from Jolin Promo. Brian, thanks for joining us today. How are you doing?
I'm great. How are you, Josh?
I'm doing great. I'm doing great. So let's dive right into the questions. So
Yes.
you actually you had two great responses for this last week when we were talking about storytelling. And we wanted to talk about your answer to question 3 first. So the question was, a story is more than just a list of facts. When you tell your story, do you take time to give it a beginning, a middle, and an end? Is there a conflict and resolution? You had this really great answer, and you said, I found that clients don't really care about your story. They care about their story.
Exactly.
Yeah, right? So we're wondering what tips do you have for turning the client into the hero of the story that you're telling?
Well, full disclosure, my friend April Sunshine Hawkins, who now works for Donald Miller in Nashville, Tennessee, he has a whole program called StoryBrand.
Mm-hmm.
And that's where, from her specifically, listening to his podcast, and before she worked for him directly, she helped me wireframe my website. And it sort of changed my whole mindset, sort of, I guess, becoming a disciple of the story brand marketing. And it basically says that your client doesn't necessarily care about how the company was started or who owns it or what kind of dogs you have or anything like that. What they care about is their own story, and they have a really short attention span. And so you have to be super clear with your message, and you have to make them the hero of their story. And so whether it's, marketing on Facebook or your website or in client meetings especially, you have to focus on what's their conflict, how are you going to guide them through it, but making them the hero, not you. Because if you're the hero, a lot of people, a lot of prospects and customers will be like, well, I'm looking to be the hero of my own story, my own marketing story. I don't want to hire a hero. I want to hire a guide. Does that make sense?
Oh, that makes great sense. I love that idea of hiring a guide. And whenever you take a writing class, they always talk, or a speech class or anything like that, about any class about interacting with another person, they always talk about knowing your audience, right? So that idea of knowing who you're talking to and knowing how to lift them up and make them the center of what you're trying to do. That's great info and a great piece of advice. Thanks for that. And what was the name of the podcast again, so people can go look it up?
It's Donald Miller's Story Brand. And
Okay.
he's the author of some books people may have heard of, Blue Like Jazz, and then I think A Million Miles in 1,000 Years. I may be getting the title wrong on that. But he
Well,
has weekly podcasts that are every bit as good or almost as good as the Promo Kitchen podcast.
awesome. Well, I always love adding new things to my podcast list. So now all of the promo chatters out there, they have homework for next week. Just go listen to that podcast.
Yeah, and after changing my website over, I noticed Mark Graham from commonsku had a blog today about simplifying his website and not making it about just an e-commerce platform,
Mm-hmm.
but more a relationship starter. And since I did that to my website, I guess about a year and a half ago, my sales have doubled. And really, it's not just the website, because I don't really sell anything on the website. I just try to get appointments. But it's that mindset of focusing on the client and making them the focus of everything you're doing, rather than talking about what you're going to do for them. Talk about how they're going to be the hero of their marketing story.
Amazing. That's wow. That's amazing.
Well, the sales were small to start with, so it's not that.
Well, still. All right. So that leads pretty well into our next question. So for the last question, we asked the chat, what story do you think other people tell about you? Is it the same story that you're telling? How can you make sure that they align? And you talked about how you get great feedback on Facebook and social media, and we wanted to see how, like, what approach do you take in order to, like, solicit those comments? Do you do anything, or are people just coming to you on their own? Like, how do you get that engagement on social media?
I definitely find, even with my best clients that I've become friends with, that I have to hound them for some sort of social media post or a review. They don't just naturally flock to doing a review or posting something. It rarely, once in a while, somebody will tag my company or myself and say, thank you for the help with the t-shirts or with the tumblers or whatever project we're working on. And of course, I love that. But every time I try to do deliveries in person as often as possible and then talk about their next project, make sure there's no buyer's remorse, that they're fully happy with the product and all that. And one thing I try to do, if I can, is take a picture of them using the product or wearing it. And certain clients, like plastic surgery offices, they get into the whole thing a lot more because they're on social media every day. And, you know, they're just more savvy with that sort of thing. And then there's other customers, like maybe a preschool director or whatever. She's a little more shy about that. But sometimes you can get them to get their employees together at an employee meeting, all wearing their t-shirts, and get a group picture that way. Because definitely a picture of just a t-shirt or a hat or a water bottle, which is unfortunately my last post on social media, is a little boring, but a person wearing it or using it is a lot more fun and more engaging, I guess you would say. So
Yeah, totally. We definitely see that people like to see pictures of other people more than they like to see pictures of just things. And yeah, you make a great point. If you don't ask for it, then people don't know that you want it. So make the
exactly.
ask. Yeah.
Well, and you were saying that the Promo Kitchen audience might be interested a little bit in how I've been able to use Facebook as sort of a tool to grow my business.
Yeah, totally. Yeah.
So I wrote down a couple thoughts. So excuse me while I look up at my Post-its. But I started my Facebook page, I don't even know, probably 4 years ago or so, and only had probably 50 people that liked it. And there was a few customers and a few family members. But when I really got serious about it and started trying to be intentional about posting several times a week and doing more engagement type stuff and actually paying Facebook for some engagements, then what I did was I got all of my, Facebook friends, especially the ones that live in the Dallas-Fort Worth area, got them to like the page, asked them to like or have their friends like the page. And then even recently, I've traded with some referral partners, like an electrician, air conditioning client of mine. He asked all of his friends and all of his pages, followers, to follow me with sort of a nice little introduction about how they like doing business with me. And then he's also the person that does electrical repairs at my house. And so I did the same thing for him. And we both added I think it was over 100 followers that way, which is a lot more organic than just paying Facebook to find you new people to like your page.
Oh, totally.
Friends of friends or friends of clients. And then when I do my advertising, I try to run like some kind of contest as often as possible and give away like a self promo bottle of vodka or wine from like A Plus Wine Design, something like that. Something that's kind of fun and meaningful. And of course, it would be nice if all 500 or 600 people were engaging on that. But really, I think as long as it's anywhere near 5%, I consider it successful that way. And I've spent hundreds of dollars a year on Facebook advertising, but I find a lot of times when I'm meeting with a new client, if it's not an in-person referral, they're like, oh yeah, we saw you on Facebook and you're friends with so-and-so. And there's that kind of several degrees of, separation, but it's like Fort Worth is the biggest small town in the world, it feels like, even though it's over 700,000 people here. So that seems to have been how I've been successful on Facebook. And then also posting on Instagram for sort of a younger audience, and then just cross-posting it to Twitter and Facebook, and then running the promotion on Facebook.
Awesome. Yeah, you went out and did the social thing and actually did that web of social connections that Facebook and other networks out there elevate and create. So yeah, that's the perfect way to help build up your audience, especially when you're starting small, when you're starting with just a handful of people. Building it up to a couple hundred to 500 to even more than that's really difficult when you're first starting out on social media. So it sounds like you really laid the groundwork for a strong presence. That's awesome.
And it's a little bit of a chore sometimes, but try to make it fun and be somewhat entertaining, and not just posting flyers and websites all the time, but actually people using the product or some sort of self-deprecating humor sometimes is fun,
I,
things like that, so that it's more entertaining than just selling.
I always like to say 10% wackiness.
Yes.
Yeah, yeah.
Well, we're probably a little more than that here, but
That's always fine. That's a minimum that you should.
okay, good.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much for joining us and asking or answering a couple of questions for us today. Where can people find you on the internet?
On the what?
On the internet, it's a thing that we
Never heard
use
of that.
sometime. Oh, it's a new thing. You might want to check into it.
On Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram, it's just Jolin Promo. So
Awesome.
pretty easy to find.
Awesome. Well, go find Brian on all of his social media, and you can find us every Wednesday at noon Pacific, 3 p.m. Eastern on #Promochat on Twitter.